The sea laps onto the shore and cliffs of the Isle of Wight. This is an island with a heritage so varied that it seems to encompass the history of England. From the north of the island, the views over the Solent towards Portsmouth would be views albeit far different to now, which Queen Victoria would have enjoyed from the garden balustrade of her island retreat. About a mile south of Cowes is Osborne House. Here the young Queen would come for holidays with her consort Prince Albert. In the lush grounds of the estate she would, on a fine day, ride her horse with a great deal of pleasure. She may also have ridden in a horse-drawn trap in the sunshine of the island. But the heritage of the island is not just Queen Victoria. It starts far beyond those days of the 19th century. Over 1500 years to the invasion of the island by the Emperor Claudius in the 1st century AD. The first Roman villa at Brading would be a very simple building. Pottery used would be made by local craftsmen after Roman styles. As the villa inhabitants became more prosperous, floors of ornate mosaics were laid, and many of these have been excavated at Brading. By 240 AD, the house had been extended and underfloor heating or hypercaust built, a sign of great affluence. The well was dug in the early days of the villa and is about 24 metres deep. Samian pottery has been found here, together with 3 small dogs and the body of a young man. The roof of the villa was made of one of 2 kinds of hard and shelly Bembridge limestone or clay tiles, known as tegulae. A display of the stones used is in the museum at the villa. The rooftops and unusual chimneys of Arreton Manor date from the start of the 17th century. But there have been buildings here also since Roman times. The marble hounds at the porch represent wolfhounds of the Roman period. The originals of these are in the Uffizi Museum in Florence. The rest of the stonework stems from the Middle Ages and later, some near the porch being dated 1639. Inside, much of the structure is from medieval times, around the 15th and 16th centuries. The gardens, now in a process of restoration themselves, are mainly Tudor and Elizabethan. Enclosed areas are an essential part of these gardens, just like the medieval gardens which they are replacing. The enclosed areas of the medieval are in sharp contrast to the parkland style of well-known landscape gardener Lancelot Capability Brown. He introduced this style of garden in the 1750s in many English stately homes, including here at Osborne House near Wroxall, which he designed in 1779. Building of the Baroque style Osborne House commenced in 1701 to replace the large Tudor house inherited by Sir Robert Worsley. The 11 acres of ornamental grounds are a delight to walk round. In the 18th century, grain would be harvested and taken to the local mill, such as this one at Bembridge. Probably built by local farmer Henry Dennett, this mill would be welcomed as hand milling was hard work, and taking the grain to the mainland would be costly. When we call a young lad a little nipper, we are using a word which described the boy who would fix sailcloth to the frames of the sails. The grain would be hoisted up to the top of the mill by a rope. It then fell through canvas chutes into the hopper, where it would be ground between 2 millstones, each weighing half a ton. The machine floor was the first one up from ground level, and the main shaft turned the spur wheel near the ceiling during the grinding and bagging processes. At the end of the 18th century, John Kent was the miller, and being a farmer as well, he kept hogs at the mill. Pig's fat would be ideal for greasing the cogs, but in 1795 a mad dog attacked and killed 2 of his hogs. Models of windmills show us now how they would look in their heyday. As the last surviving mill on the island, local people raised money to restore this mill at Pembridge, and it was given to the National Trust in 1962. The thatched cottages of God's Hill were built in the 16th century on the hillock surrounding the church. The old Bell Cottage was once a pub. According to legend, the original foundations of the church were laid in the 14th century in a flat, easily accessible site. But every morning they were found transferred to the hillock. So the builders gave in and built it there. There has been a castle at Carisbrooke since the first wooden construction just after the Norman conquest. But the present stone fortification dates mostly from around 1100 AD. During the 14th century and the 100 Years' War, the island and the castle were frequently attacked by the French. In 1377, the French landed in strength and laid siege to Carisbrooke. In 1647, during the Civil War, King Charles I, held prisoner, managed to escape from Hampton Court and decided to go to the Isle of Wight, where he hoped to continue the war from Carisbrooke. However, Colonel Hammond, who was the brother of King Charles I's chaplain, tried to keep the king comfortable, and the Barbican outside the castle was converted into a bowling green for him to play on. The bowling green is still visible, though definitely not playable. Since 1291, there has been a well house over the well, and a treadmill also. Princess Beatrice, the youngest daughter of Queen Victoria, was said to have liked the well water better than that from the tap. Donkeys were used to raise buckets from the bottom, and there is still a team of 6 donkeys that work at the castle, showing how the water was brought to the surface. Princess Beatrice was made a governor of the castle until she died in 1944. Queen Victoria's grandson Maurice is also commemorated by an altar painting in the cathedral-like interior of the chapel. Maurice was killed at Ypres in 1914. Princess Beatrice's affection with the Isle of Wight undoubtedly follows that of her mother, Queen Victoria. The Queen took advantage of the coming of the railways to make frequent visits there, and in 1845 she bought Osborne House from the Blatchford family, and the royal couple moved in the following year. The house for the Queen and Albert proved to be too small, and Albert set about redesigning and rebuilding it in partnership with Thomas Cubitt, the builder. Affairs of state soon followed her, and the modestly furnished family home had to be enhanced with apartments where she could receive foreign heads of state. Prince Albert would get changed in his sumptuous dressing room before joining the Queen in the Durbar room with its peacock fireplace. A luxurious meal would follow. The Queen died at Osborne, and her coffin was laid in the royal ship Alberta, which lay silently at anchor in the Solent. Today, the house is a memorial to a well-loved Queen, and a horse and trap waits to take children and adults alike around the extensive grounds of this former royal family home, place of state affairs and recently restored terraces. As the party disappear into the distance, it is almost as if the old Queen herself was riding with them. This is an island of great history and of great people in their time. An island heritage of great interest, and long will it remain so.